And being recorded. We're ready to rock and roll. What's up, Honey Badger Nation? This is John Kitchens, and this is episode 96 of Expert Mentors Live. I'm very excited for today's episode as we have Miss Renee from the west side of the 216 on. Yeah. And we're gonna talk how to juggle, pivot, manage all the demands of sales, agent attraction, focusing in on revenue. Man, how can we turn a profit on top of family, and even more so, for operating as a solo agent and representing you guys with a small team. So Renee, say hello to the Honey Badger Nation.
Hello, Honey Badgers. How are you all?
I'm really excited, and I reached out to you to have you on for a lot of reasons, but one, doing and operating at such a high level as a solo agent. And, as we kind of chatting with Holly, the last couple of days, kind of talking about this, she's like, you do realize, like, with just in the Honey Badger Nation, that there is just a small portion, right? There's over 3,600 of us now within the Honey Badger organization. And there's like less than 100 that have, 8 direct sponsors, right? So you look at this, the mass of within the organization is made up of a lot of just small, I would say, what would you say small team? Less than 5 people?
Yeah.
Less than 5. So we can say that's kind of a small team or a solo agent. And it's like, man, sometimes when we have these mega agents on, it's hard sometimes for a lot of people to connect and be able to relate, right? They're like, that self-doubt creeps in and it becomes, well, that's cool for them, but like we used to hear all the time, well, I'm not Jay Kinder. That ain't gonna work. So I was like, we've got to get some people that are exceeding at an extremely high level in all aspects, all equities, to be able to jump in and add value and share. And so that was really the intent and the goal of having, reaching out. And I appreciate you making the time to jump in and add some value here to the Honey Badger Nation.
No, I love it. Thank you so much. You had reached out. I'm like, yeah, awesome. Let me get on and do an Expert Mentors Live in arguably one of the most crazy times that anyone's really experienced, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. And it's like, well, shit, how do I figure this out? Right. I got, young kiddos at home. I'm, working from home. How do I juggle all of this? So I think it's like, this is going to be a fun conversation and really relative, to, people can relate to what's going on. And I've been making sure on a lot of our conversations and time stamping everything, because I think it's really, really important. As much has changed over the last 10 days. It seems like things were changing every day. Right. And so here we are, March the 25th, here, noon Central. So kind of give everybody that's listening in a reference of, kind of what's going on in the world and how we're navigating. So Renee, for those that don't know who you are, give a little background and, a little bit about yourself, and then maybe we can talk timeline of when you got licensed and into up to where we're at today.
Cool. Thank you. So yeah, I got into the real estate space originally as an investor. My husband was in the military. He was a explosive ordnance disposal. So he's a bomb guy.
He's a bomb guy.
He's a bomb guy, which explains a lot. He's the only one that can tolerate and diffuse me. So having said that, so he was off fighting in the Iraq War, and I was over here. We were buying flips, doing buy and holds, and in the investment space. So I was working full time. At the time, we had a 4-year-old, so I was basically a single, and I was doing investments. So I bought a couple investments from a particular real estate agent here, and I bought 3 of them, and finally they were like, Renee, why don't you get your license? And I was like, because I work 60 hours a week for, a corporation, and I'm a single mom, and when am I going to have time to do that, right? And then my company got bought out, which was happening a lot in that time. So my company got bought out, and I had time to go get my real estate license at that point. So got my real estate license, and that right around 2000, it was 2008 when I got my license. So when everyone else was getting out of the business, I was jumping into the business. So of course, everybody looked at me like I had 3 heads. I'm like, what is this crazy person doing? But yeah, so I got my license. So I learned how to sell real estate in some pretty adverse, adverse situations. So the economy was, almost everybody was underwater. So it was really interesting. You had agents that were used to, they'd put a sign in the yard and the phone would start ringing off the hook, to a time where, you had to pick up the phone and dial out. So that's,
Yeah. So,
that's me. So
yeah, I think that, I think there's some principles there that, you learn getting into that type of market that probably apply to, kind of the current landscape, the current situation.
yeah, absolutely. And, within that, so I get into real estate. So I'm a single mom. My husband's over, fighting the war. I get into real estate. I didn't get him back till 2009. So it was really interesting, just navigating that space and trying to balance, which we all know balance is kind of a passe word, there's really no such thing. I like to consider myself perfectly imbalanced.
There you go.
But yeah, it definitely taught me some strategies to get through situations like this. I also had 2 kids, over after I got licensed. I had two more children. So currently I have a 17-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old right now. So in essence, and my husband's considered essential as well in his current job. So we're trying to navigate this whole, kids are home, trying to teach kids, homeschool them, trying to work, still keeping real estate afloat. It's a lot to juggle. And I really kind of feel like, we had our conversation the other day. I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of back in 2008 and looking at the strategies that we were using back then and trying to implement them now.
So share some of those. What are some of the things that you're looking back at and really looking to apply, and saying, oh well, hey, this is what we were doing, and what are you adapting and applying to what you guys are doing now?
Yeah. So I was kind of looking back at this, and we talked about solo agents and smaller teams. What you said earlier is so true. Like, you look at all these mega teams, and we have such amazing leadership in the Honey Badger group. Huge teams, these people leading these huge teams, they have so much value to add. And then you have this group of people that are solo agents in these smaller teams. It's like, oh my gosh, especially if you're just getting into the business or you're just starting to build your team, you're like, where do I go from here? And I remember when I got into the business in 2008, a big deal for me was an accountant. I know that sounds silly, but like when you're a W-2 employee, like a lot of times, you're filing your taxes and whatnot is kind of simple, right? And then when you get into the real estate space, you now realize that there's nothing coming out of your commission checks in terms of, paying taxes, and you yourself now have to manage that, right? And if you're anything like a lot of the agents or myself, when I got a big old fat commission check, I was like, sweet. And it never entered my brain that I needed to set aside funds to end up paying my taxes at the end of the year, right?
Yep.
And then you also, when you get into this business, you don't know how well it's going to go for you. You pave the road with the best of intentions. You're like, I'm going to hit it hard. And you know what? Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And if it works out, you start selling, you start making a significant income. And then you realize when you go to do your taxes, someone tells you that you have this huge tax bill that you need to pay, right? And I did that. So I kind of, like when I started working, and John working with you and the Honey Badger group, it's so cool because I look at it like, oh my God, everything you guys teach, I feel like you taught it because of me and we didn't even know each other. Like, I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about all of the mistakes I made. And all of the issues I encountered, and we had never even met prior to. So I'm like, how do they
Yeah.
So, I started making income in this business, and then next thing you know, 2 years later, I go to file my taxes, and my accountant says, Renee, you owe a lot of money. And at that particular time, and I'll just share with you because I'm kind of an open book, I also kind of swear like a trucker, so I apologize if something
You
slips
are
out.
from Cleveland, so I I had to wear my shirt today to represent. So it's all good.
I love it.
Honey badger.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, so they're like, you owe $35,000. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, I owe $35,000.
How's that
When you go
possible?
from you go from a W-2 job where you're getting, refunds back, and next thing you know, I'm like, I owe $35,000. So at that particular time, like I said, I had been flipping property. I had been, I had buy and holds. I ended up having to flip a property to pay my tax bill.
Mm,
And then guess what flipping that property did
that
for
was
my
more.
next year's taxes?
Yeah.
Right. So make sure that, solo agent, starting a team, make sure that you have someone in your corner, a strategic accountant, not somebody who's just going to file your taxes for you, somebody who's going to give you the advice to set you up appropriately so that when you do start making income, that you're insulating yourself from those types of mistakes and those types of unexpected expenses.
How did you guys go about finding that type of accountant? Because I mean, yeah, I mean they're you would think that would be normal, but it's not. So like, how did you guys go about, and are you still using the same one that you used then? Somebody new? Like what have you guys done?
Yeah, great question. So I did tap into the other agents that I at my particular brokerage at that time, and said, hey, who are you guys using for your taxes? What does that look like? And those of you who've never filed taxes as a real estate agent like this, you may be used to paying X amount of dollars to have your taxes done. Well, in this kind of situation, it costs a little bit more, right? And you need to look at it in terms of that expense. If that's going to save you that much more, then it's worth it, right? So I started asking, different individuals. My brokerage at the time actually had someone come in and present to us, that was giving us some tax strategies and some information, and kind of went from there. I am not with the same person that I was in the beginning. In fact, I think I'm 3 accountants deep now. But I've been licensed since 2008. So as my investment portfolio changed, as the growth changed, my needs changed a little bit as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, layering in, the fact that I've got a 17-year-old heading off to college soon, and I still have a little girl that's going into kindergarten. Those types of things entered the equation as well, and I needed somebody that had a broad scope. Somebody who, and definitely need to deal with somebody who knows real estate taxes.
I love it. That's great advice for all of you guys listening in. And one of the other key things that I was really excited to have Renee on to share, as there's peace of mind going through times of uncertainty if you're set up and you're structured correctly. I remember, kind of our first conversation of this year, right? We were kind of talking about, hey, what's current reality, where we're at. And I forget how many months of core capital that you had. I was like, shit, we can do whatever you want. We can do whatever you want. And speak to that, because when like the phrase that we like to use is like, man, I can hold my breath for 90 days, right? I don't have to close another deal for 90 days and I'm good. And that's a different mindset for us when we know that we can be strategic versus we're running on fumes and you start to panic, right? You then like talk to that a little bit and the importance of that and the things that you were focused on to get into that position.
Yeah. So I think sometimes as solo agents, and look, I mean, the majority of America lives paycheck to paycheck, and that is not uncommon for the real estate agents as well. They live commission check to commission check. And whether you're a solo agent, a small team, a large team, you need, and first of all, most brokerages, they don't even teach the term core capital. They don't, you
I
know,
don't even know what it is.
they don't.
Explain what that is to everybody.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially it's your nest egg. You need some cash that you're sitting on, some money that you're sitting on to carry you through times like this. And nobody really teaches you that. You're not always going to have a commission check, or you're not always going to have several commission checks coming in for the months. I know personally, I've gone, months without commission checks, and the next month, you're closing 10 deals. So you might have a $40,000 month, a $50,000 month, a $70,000 month, and then you go and you have nothing for the month, right? And you would like to think that you're disciplined enough to be able to spread your expenses and to spread your spending out. But the truth of the matter is, most of us aren't, especially real estate agents. So having that core capital, having that nest egg, having enough money sitting there to carry you through several months of operating expenses. And I don't care who you are. If you're a solo agent, you still have operating expenses. So many real estate agents treat their business like it is a job, and they just collect the check, they pay their bills, and they spend money. You have operating expenses as a solo real estate agent. You have dues, you have MLS dues, you have board dues, you have, fees at brokerages. You have operating expenses, and you need to look at those operating expenses and know that you have X amount of months sitting there ready and waiting for you to tap into in the event that you have to.
Let me add a little bit more to that as well. It also includes what you pay yourself. And, a lot of, agents are like, well, I pay myself all of that. And that's not the right answer. The right answer is, what does it cost for you to pay all of your bills, right? Current style of living, you can factor that in. And let's say, for example, Renee, it cost you $2,500 a month, $3,000 a month, $5 a month, $5,000 a month. Let's just use simple numbers. It cost you $5,000 a month to operate your business, and it cost you $5,000 a month to live, pay all your bills, groceries, entertainment, everything, right? So 10,000, let's just, cause it's for simple math, 10,000. And ideally what we talk about, I think when you get on a little bit larger scale, you can go with 2 months. Some of the gurus out there say you need 6 months. I think if you're good 3 to 4 months, would probably be ideal cash, because 90 days, right? You can hold your breath. And once you start to see, oh shit, I ain't got nothing in the pipeline, you're going to start to course correct. You're going to start to make changes. So it's not going to be like, well, I'm not going to do anything for 90 days. That's not going to happen. Right. So, because you wouldn't have been able to get in the financial situation if by doing nothing. So you're going to course correct, you're going to stay proactive. So that's kind of what you're looking for. I would say, hey, 3 to 4 months, you can go 6 months, whatever your threshold is, right? Bigger businesses, I mean, if you guys are operating, it's 50, 60,000 a month. I would say 2 months is perfect enough. So just, you have to kind of gauge. So make sure when you're talking, it's not just paying your bills for business, but it's also paying yourself. That's the number. That's the real number that you need to get to. So no, that's fantastic. And I kind of jumped. You went down the rabbit hole. We were talking cash. I do want to jump back for everybody. License struggles, 2008. Just kind of continue that timeline, because from looking at, hey, I want to dabble in building this team, right? Everybody hey, maybe I should build a team. Kind of talk a little bit about that. And then we can kind of transition into where we're at. And then I do have some productivity questions and things that I think will be of real value for everybody tuning in.
Sure. So I think that the natural evolution is, especially back there, and I'll just share with you, I mean, my previous brokerage, I was with Keller Williams, and they encourage teams, right? And as a solo agent, you get up to a certain level of business, and then you start realizing that you need some leverage. So I personally pulled the trigger on an assistant, and then pulled the trigger on a second assistant, and then organically, people are like, hey, you're kind of doing this thing. Like, can I come work with you? And so the first thing that I know that I missed when I started growing my team was I didn't write down the reasons why I wanted to grow a team. I didn't. And I just kind of did it because I was like, well, I need someone to go run these buyers, and I need somebody to go do this, and I need somebody to go do that. And it was more about insulating me than it was about what the value I was bringing them. So in terms of growing a team, I didn't necessarily have a value proposition for the members coming on my team. It was more of a self-preservation than anything. And that was a huge mistake, because when you're growing a team, you have a responsibility to the people that you're bringing on the team. You need to be able to articulate the value that you're going to bring them. Is it coaching? Is it training? Is it administrative help? What does that look like? And trust me, if you're looking to grow a team, you're going to want to write the reasons down why you want to grow a team, because you're going to need it. You're going to need to look back at that. And
I've got to give everybody a recommendation for you to kind of figure this out. I haven't even shared this one with you yet, but it's Patrick Lencioni's new book. It's called The Motive. And he just released it maybe 30 days ago. And it breaks down why you choose to lead, right? And what's the real motive? And he identified there's only two. And go through it, Patrick Lencioni style. He does it in a fable. He tells the story, and then he gives the principles behind it. He says he's written like 14 or 15 books, and he said this is the book you need to read first. And he talks about why he never wrote it and what he was challenged in his thinking, and all the research that they've done over the years. And if you guys don't you're in business, you need to be reading, there's business books you need to be reading. Patrick Lencioni is probably the best. The number one book that I would say behind this would be The Advantage. And if you're growing a team, he has The Ideal Team Player. So you just, those are some business fundamental books that you need to have in your library. But I had to, just because of where you were going, where you were talking about that, this is a must. If you think you want to have a team, or if you do have a team, you need to read that. And let's keep going. Let's keep going, because you're building this, and I want to pull some of these principles out of you, what you learned, because I think this is really valuable, what you're sharing for everybody.
Yeah. So, through self-preservation, it was, hey, yes, this buyer's agent's going to come on and they're going to run this buyer for me. And this, this admin's going to do this, and this admin's going to do that. And then, oh yeah, another agent wants to come on. Yeah, they're going to be a buyer's agent for me. And, at the time it was 110% preach that, you have buyer's agents and you have listing agents, and that's it. They don't do both. You have to specialize, so forth and so on. And then you realize quickly over time that when you bring that buyer's agent on, and if you're giving away all your buyer business, you're like, oh shit. Yeah. You're, no matter how, you really need to look at how your business is split as a single agent. Is it a 50-50 split? Are you 50% on listings, 50% on buyers? How are we doing on internet connection, John? I keep getting
so the struggle is real here in North Dallas. And so it's super sketchy. I'm getting the unstable internet popping up. So let's keep rolling. I'm hearing you just crystal clear. So hopefully Perfect. The recording will capture, everything that you're sharing. So let's just keep rolling.
Excellent. So, you got to really decide where, or figure out where your business is coming from to even know if you can afford to give up all of your buyer business to your buyer agents. If you don't take that time to look at that, you're going to quickly realize that you are not going to be generating the income that you're used to. And that presents 100%. a whole nother issue, which, John's got this big smile on his face because he's like, oh my God, this is why we wrote, half the training classes we've written. And I'm like, I know, if I only had you back then. But yeah, so then you're losing half your business effectively. When I say losing, I mean, you're turning it over to someone. You're seeing a little bit of it because of your splits with your team members, but nowhere near where you would be if you were handling those deals yourself. So then you're back to a core capital issue, income issue, and you're like, oh crap, I need to go out and I need to find more business. Well, the next thing people do to find more business is they start spending money because they want to find the silver bullet to bring more business in.
Yep, 100%. You know,
Yeah.
there's really only two models, right? If you really want to distill down to it, and one is the solopreneur, where you're focused, you're in production deep. You're not going to make. There's nothing when you're running a team brokerage. There's nothing more profitable than you doing deals. There's not. And then if you really want to have a team, you have to increase headcount. That there's no in between, right? Is so when you're small, if you're not careful and you're not staying focused on your production, then you're going to, like you said, I mean, the cash is going to dip. It's going to be a distraction. So you've got to be really mindful of that. So you're going through that phase. You're learning those lessons, and then let's kind of move forward a little bit and kind of what was the next evolution. Trying to tee you up here, moving into, from a partnership standpoint, the next steps and things that you guys did.
Yeah. So I had a particular agent that was a really great friend of mine, and we always tended to be kind of neck and neck in terms of production. In fact, we would often call each other and be like, "Haha, did you see me this month? Like I kicked your ass."
Yeah.
in the next month.
Yeah.
So we had this really friendly little competition going on with each other, which was kind of fun. And then we kind of looked at each other and like, what would happen if we joined forces? Like, he did business a kind of a different way than I did. And, I had a 92% referral based business, 92%. And at the time I was doing maybe like 40 to 50 transactions in 92% referral based.
Super profitable.
Yeah. It's super profitable, right?
Super profitable. Stacking cash.
Yeah. But what I wasn't doing was I wasn't, finding that new business. I wasn't doing internet leads. I wasn't doing anything like that. So, and this individual that I wanted to join forces with was built a business on Zillow, so forth and so on. So we decided to join forces, and we're like, man, together we make a really great badass agent, right? And we had a couple individuals on our teams as well, so we brought them all together. What that did was, yes, it gave someone to bounce ideas off of. Yes, it gave you the ability to just get checks and balances, right? Like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and bouncing it off. But the other thing that it did was it took longer to make decisions. Because now you have two opinions. You have two people that have their own thoughts and their own ideas, and now you're slowing down the decision making. At least we were. That doesn't happen in all partnerships, but we were slowing down our decision making to the point where in some cases it was almost analysis paralysis. We were so worried about letting the other person down or making the wrong decision in pulling the trigger that it almost became a crutch. Which was a really interesting dynamic that I didn't see coming. We were both drivers, but we were so invested in knowing that now we're responsible for other people's families that that analysis became so involved that it prevented us from making decisions quickly. And in this business, you have to be able to pivot and move quickly. You have to. I can't even think of a more appropriate time to have that conversation than right now. It's crazy, the decisions that you're having to make and that you're having to completely flip how you do business. And ultimately, we decided over time that profitability wasn't there. We were doing volume, but we weren't profitable in the way that we should be. And it didn't make sense any longer to prolong that. Now, could we have done a better job of navigating through that. And, we always talk about expectations versus agreements. Could we have done a better job of really holding each other accountable to the agreement? We absolutely could. But those are mistakes that agents make going forward and going through this process. And I made them. We made them.
So yeah, share. I think this is important for everybody to take in. And I'm huge pro partnership. But like you said, there's a right way, wrong way. Share some of those lessons learned, kind of reflecting back, like, okay, I see where we messed up here. We could have done this better. Like,
sure.
kind of share that. And your partner, amazing human being, right? Just fantastic. So, I don't think that wasn't the issue. You did mention both drivers. That can be a little bit of a challenge when you're talking partnership. But what were some of the other lessons learned that, looking back, you're like, man, we messed that up?
Yeah. So when you are a driver and you're making the decisions for yourself or for your team, it's you. You're the ultimate end all be all, right? You say it happens. When you have a partnership, you need to be in agreement, or to be okay with not being in agreement and letting a particular person take the lead on that particular situation. So you've got the operations side of your business, you have the sales side of your business, and you need a clear definition of what those roles and responsibilities are between that partnership, so that you're still checking in with each other, but someone ultimately leads the charge in that particular area. So you're over sales, you're checking in with the agents, you're fielding questions for them, you're who's coaching and training? Is it both of you? Who's managing the finances? Who's looking at the books every week? Every Friday, are you looking at that and holding your checkbook and your income accountable? So those were things that we kind of thought we had nailed, but truthfully and honestly, when we look back, it wasn't clear. There was a lot of assumptions as opposed to clear agreements.
I love that, and that's usually where it falls apart, right? Is not being crystal clear. Handshake, writing, whatever, right? We've got that clear agreement, clear roles, responsibilities. And the thing too is that it's not forever, right? It's when you look at roles and responsibilities, it's really dependent upon what is the current objective we're trying to accomplish. And it's important to have that reevaluation every 90 days, reevaluate what the design needs to look like, right? The organizational design to hit that target, hit that objective. And so I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. They, they don't get clear on the agreement, but then they think, man, I don't want to sign up for this forever. It's like, no, that's not forever. It's for like, hey, this is what I need to be doing right now. And so those are awesome. Anything like communication wise with, through that process that you guys learned, maybe we could have communicated at a higher level?
Absolutely. And I think that, again, the desire to not want to let anyone down that's just innate in most human beings. They don't want to let anyone, they'll let themselves down, but they don't want to let others down, right?
Right.
So the desire to not want to let anyone down, you're kind of like, okay, well, let's just keep going through the motions. Let's just keep going the way we're going. And then eventually you kind of look at each other and like, okay, well, what was the goal? What was the goal in the first place? When we came together, what were the goals? Why did we do this? Which is why I said, if you're going to start a team, you really need to write down what the goals are, and what your intentions are for creating that team. Daily communication. And I mean, every morning you do your huddle and say, okay, these are the priorities today. Do we need to have an offsides conversation? And constant that daily huddle with your entire team, and that daily huddle with just the leaders of that team, that partnership. And not everything needs to be, an hour and a half long. It's 15 minutes. Like, hey, here's the priorities. Here's what we need to focus on. And if there's an offside conversation that needs to happen, set a time for that to happen. Because again, you will get into the conversations that take an hour and a half, and you're having meetings about meetings, and there's no production and no productivity happen.
Yeah, not productive at all. Well, cool. So you guys came to the realization, and just determined that it just wasn't going to work, and it was best to move separate directions. So that brings us into what, about a year ago. So it brings us into to 2019. Kind of,
Yeah.
talk about the immediate changes for you at that point, and really where your focus and attention went.
Yeah. So the idea, again, the growth of the team was for leverage and for, you assume you're going to do more sales and you assume you're going to be more profitable, which it doesn't work that way. You really have to be extremely mindful of holding that checkbook accountable and that bank account accountable. And when we did decide to split ways, you immediately go into, you've got these stages of grief, right? You immediately go into, oh my gosh, I failed. Like I freaking failed. Like, oh my God.
Right.
I failed them. I failed myself. I failed my family. So you need to quickly, you need to have your 2 minutes, and then you need to get the hell up and figure that out. And then you need to focus on what's important. And that was we want to make sure everybody's okay. And that we're okay with the decision, and then immediately get into productivity. Immediately focus on what's going to bring cash in and on what that looks like. When you're in part of a partnership or part of a team, you're branding as a team, you're branding as a partnership. You need to, what does the brand look like? Is it the same brand? Is it a different brand? There are a lot of different things to focus on, but ultimately, the only thing that's going to keep you going is production. You got to sell.
Yeah, 100%.
You got to bring the income in. So that was a big, not a shift. I mean, it's always been about production, but now you're the one. And guys, let me just tell you, if there's anyone watching that is in a situation right now where they're looking at their team and they're like, wow, did I build this the right way? Did I build it on the right foundation? And you're struggling with that. If you're asking yourself that question, chances are you probably need to re-examine it. Stripping my team was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. And I stripped everyone with the exception of my admin. I kept my admin.
Talk about that a little bit,
Yeah.
Because there's a right way and a wrong way to go about that. So just kind of share kind of the process that you went through for everybody.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you spend that kind of time with each other, I mean, you are a family. I mean, bottom line, you are a family. You care about their kids, their house payments, what's going on with them. So it was a lot of individual conversations saying, hey, and let's face it, no matter how it's a business, it's still a divorce in some way, right? It's a separation, and you're looking at your team members going, okay, well, who's going to get the kids, right? And
right.
I hate to say it like that, but that's really kind of what it is. And you have these team members that feel loyalty to to maybe feel stronger loyalty to one person versus the other. And we want to take all that off the table. Take all of that off the table. Like, look, we all have alliances with individuals, and we all have personal relationships with individuals. We're taking that off the table. You do not have to choose a mom or a dad. you need to choose what's right for you. And we need to be in agreement as leaders that there is going to be no hard feelings about what those decisions look like. And so for me, I kind of took it off the table and said, look, like I'm starting over. I'm going to take a look at myself and my business as an individual. And if I choose to grow this thing again, I will let you know. But right now, the right thing for me to do is to focus on production for myself, and that's what's going to happen. And then making sure that they had places to land. If they still wanted to be on a team, finding a team that was going to work best for them. If they wanted to get into solo, if they wanted to go on their own and be a solo agent, what does that look like for them? What kind of resources can you put in front of them to make sure that they're going to win as well? So it's a big deal, right? You need to make sure that they're able to move forward on their own as well.
Yeah, it's a real big deal. And that's the right way. So, I mean, that was a huge takeaway for all of you guys listening in. If you're ever having to you're pivoting, you're shifting, you're downsizing, you're doing whatever, especially during these times, right? There's going to be some, the longer that this drags out, there's going to be some tough decisions that have to be made. And there's a right way to go about doing it. And, talking through with it, finding, kind of where their passion, but helping them land is the key, and that you have to focus on. So That was fantastic. You touched on a couple things there, productivity, and it's kind of the whole theme that we kind of teased the entire this entire episode around. How do you juggle all of those demands, and especially now with kiddos at home, new routines, and productivity is accomplishing the result. So like, what are some of the things in the dynamics, like in today, like this now, that the adjustments that you've had to make to maintain productivity?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it's ongoing because it is changing every single day. So
Yep.
when I looked at this, so what I remember about being, and those of you who weren't in the business in 2008, those of you who were in the business prior to 2008, I kind of went back to what were people doing back then, because I was able to weather that storm. So when I got in 2008, the economy was rough. There were tons of short sales, foreclosures. My second listing ever as a real estate agent turned out to be a short sale. Not only was it a short sale, but the people that lived there stopped paying the electric bill. So the electric went off and the sump pump wasn't working. So the whole basement filled with water. Like, these are the things that I was dealing with. And to me, it was normal because I didn't know any better, right? So I looked back and I said, okay, who was winning back then? People with cash. People with cash were winning back then. So right now, and I'm not telling you what to do, I'm telling you what I've done and what I'm doing now. I have investment properties. So I immediately went to my lender and I said, hey, let me do some cash out refis on some of my investment properties, and so that I have some cash available, because there are going to be opportunities from this, and we need to be ready
100%.
for them. So I started pulling cash right now. But in that pulling cash, you need to make sure that you are in a position to, if you're pulling equity from properties, you need to make sure you're in a position to pay that payment, right? You now have the cash, but you just created a payment. So you need to make sure you have the ability to do that. So you pull cash. That's what carried a lot of people through 2008, 2009, 2010, and put some people in some really great positions because there was opportunities to be had and they were ready. So we did that. The other thing, people are fearful right now. This is one of the only times I have ever seen where we're not only fearful and mistrusting, but we're mistrusting of our own families at this point. Like, I can't go to my mom and dad's house. Right. I can't go there. So, and it's not that I don't trust them, but I can't trust that I'm not going to make them sick or vice versa, right? So we need to be we need to be the trust, right? So we need to be putting messages out there that we're here to help. And I bring it back to this. So we're from Cleveland, right? All we have is our flipping sports. Okay. And we're just diehard
Baker.
Sports.
Come on.
I mean,
I know Baker.
Thank you for allowing us to get
Baker. Yeah.
Right. But like, sports is our thing. That's just how we do, right? So we send out sports schedules. Agents around here send out sports schedules. And that might seem old school and, that doesn't work. But I'm telling you, in Cleveland, you need your sports. So I always send them out. So this year, they canceled everything, right?
Yep.
Well, I had sports schedules ordered. And they were sitting on my desk, and I'm like, well, shit, what the hell am I going to do with these now? And I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm still going to send them. And instead of sending those sports schedules with a message that's like, hey, look at me and whatever, and we typically would raffle off Indians tickets, we're season ticket holders and whatnot. And we had this really fun thing that we would do for our past clients in our sphere and our farm. This year I sent out those same baseball schedules, but instead of drawing attention and my call to action being about me, the call to action was a totally different message. And the call to action was about the food banks in the area. Yep. I said, hey, you know what? We need to come together, and we need to get donations, monetary donations, food donations to the food banks, because there were people in the area that were going to need that. So it was a different message and a different call to action, a call to action nonetheless, just different. And those type, so don't get away from doing your advertising. I mean, you're clearly going to have to look at your advertising budget, But if you can still, and you have the core capital to do it, still do your advertising, but do it in a helpful way.
Yep.
And I truly believe that will carry you through and set you up for, people will remember you for that.
Amen.
Yeah, I'm doing, we do our What's Up Wednesdays. We do a market update every week in our area. And I would focus on a local business and say, hey, I want to shout out to this local business. This is what they do. This is where we're at. And then go into a market update. Well, everything's closed. So now I'm calling on local businesses saying, hey, I'm still doing my What's Up Wednesday. I am, because there's fear, right? So I still want to talk about what's going on in the real estate market, but in the forefront, I'm still calling these businesses saying, hey, if you're a takeout business, let's hop on a Zoom call.
What are you guys doing to adapt? Yep.
Yeah. If you have e-commerce in some way, let's jump on a Zoom call and I'll do my market update about your business, because it can still help local, right? So just pivoting, and you're still marketing yourself, but in a way that you're trying to help others, right? And that's really how we market anyway. We're helping buyers and sellers, but we're helping our community in a different way right now. So that, doing that is huge.
Yeah, I think it really is. And you guys in Cleveland, you guys do a fantastic job, really supporting and for sure giving back to, the local food bank. And that's one of the things I love. Well, I love working with a lot of you guys out of Cleveland, and it's just because you guys, I mean, you guys stand together, right? And really support your community. And that's just a huge lesson for all of you guys listening in. It's not easy from a monetary standpoint to give back and support your community, but what are the other ways that we can? And, you have an audience, right? You have people that are watching you, paying attention to you, your database, your sphere, past clients. You can, like with what Renee shared, reaching out to the small business. Hey, how are you guys adapting? What are you guys doing? Let me bring my audience. It doesn't matter how big it is or how small, but let me bring my audience and let them put some eyeballs on your business. And maybe you pick up a dozen sales, takeout orders by just having that. You're giving back to the community. So I think that's a fantastic idea. Continuing to push, it help the community in that way. So that's fantastic. How are you, what's from a routine standpoint, right? Because this is really key during times of uncertainty, that it becomes a distraction, right? So we've got to make sure that we've got routines. I think people took it as a vacation last week, right? They were on vacation, but now it's starting to become pretty dang real. And so, like, getting back into solid routines, it's the new norm. And it's not going to ever go back to the way it was. There's going to be still this element from a virtual element, especially with the kiddos, right? Now more than ever, our educational system has been, needed to be pushed to more e-learning online availability. This is just kind of forcing them to go that route. So like, what are you guys doing, coordinating, 2 jobs, essential, have to go, got the juggle with the kids, still having, conversations, still working with clients, talking with agents, like give kind of like where that adaptability has gone right now for you guys.
Right. So we do Sunday planning. It is absolutely, you cannot live without it at this point. You can't. Sunday planning absolutely has to happen. And if you don't know about Sunday planning, John's done many things on it. Go back, look at them. It is absolutely something that you have to lay out. And so you're laying out, what are the meetings that I have this week? Who's responsible for taking care of the kids during this window? What are we eating? Like, that was life-changing to me in Sunday planning. What are we eating? It sounds so silly,
Yeah.
but it is huge. I mean, littles, they don't care. Littles are the ones that are on the routine. You're running your ass off, doing whatever you can. Littles, like, their little internal clocks, it's like, it's 7:30, it's time for breakfast.
Yep.
It's 11:30. It's time for lunch. I'm like, what? 11:30? They're like little clocks, and it's like, okay, who's responsible for putting those meals together? What are they going to eat? We waste so much damn time figuring out what the hell we're going to eat. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even go get takeout without it taking 40 minutes for you guys to like, do you want pizza? No, I don't want. Do you want? I mean, it's ridiculous. So get your Sunday planning together. Do that, and then that's not enough. That's what we learned, is that Sunday planning is not enough. Right now, it is absolutely not enough. It is daily freaking planning. And it's a morning check-in, like, hey, again, I just want to reiterate, this is what's happening and this is what I need to get done today. And in the evening, what the hell happened, right? Because you pave it with the best of intentions, but in the evening, you got to go over, what did we get done? Did we get everything we needed to get done? Is there anything that's being carried over? Because you can't assume. You cannot assume. I can go all day and assume that my husband got done what he said he was going to get done, and then just act like tomorrow I can do what I was supposed to do tomorrow. And then all it takes is for me to miss that one thing where he's like, well, shoot, I never made that call. Well, shoot, that means I need to have possession of the children so that you can make that call, right?
I love this. This is gold. If you guys all tuning in, I mean, you know, the previous 50 minutes have been fantastic, but for all of you guys, really hone in, right? So what Renee's sharing, I just want to, just so you guys are clear, right? So we know the best principles that we need to do with our team, with our business, morning cuddles, end of the day reports, lay out the week. We know our meeting, our communication schedule. But what Renee is breaking down for you guys is she's running her family like a business, and they're creating the communication loops for the family. I love this. Yeah. Keep going. I love what you're sharing.
Look, it's just to prevent the shit show, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent the shit show. So you are checking in the morning, reiterating what you already discussed maybe the night before, and at the end of the day, you're going back through, did we get this accomplished? What's carrying over to the next day? Because somebody's got to man these kids. Like, I've got a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 17-year-old. My 17-year-old is full on online classes. He's a senior, God bless him. Can't even talk about what we're dealing with that. But he's in full-blown classes, which means he can't help us with the kids while he's in classes. And when he's out of classes, starting next week, my 8-year-old starts learning. So he has ADHD, so pretty severe. So I got to figure out how we're going to man his schoolwork. And then I've got a 5-year-old who is yet to be in school, but she's going to want attention as well, right? So it's divide and conquer, guys. It is whatever your roles and responsibilities were before this happened, they have switched. Mm-hmm. It's who's taking care of the laundry, who's taking care of the meals, who's taking care of the school time, who's taking care of, your other responsibilities. When do I have time to go do my work? When do you have time to go do your work? It is absolutely daily. Sunday planning is not enough. It has to be daily, and it has to be written down. It can't just be assumptions. So your Google Calendar, your best friend. Get in each other's calendar. If you never wanted to share your calendar with your significant other, now's the time you need to get over that shit.
You better. We've even got a big calendar, dry erase calendar for the entire month, right? That we've got things and just keeping that communication high level.
Right.
But I love that running it, because school system has been a daycare. I mean, that's essentially what all it is, right? It's just it's been a daycare for us as, employees, entrepreneurs in the workforce trying to focus on our business. And so now that responsibility is no longer, it's on us. And so how do you navigate that communication? I love that.
And don't be afraid to, guys, I highly encourage you to let your children in on some of what you're doing. Insulate them from all the crap, all the noise, right? Insulate them from that. But like my 5-year-old, she's, we're in the middle of this, we're launching an Airbnb. Perfect timing, right? Perfect. Yes. I have an Airbnb, which actually it was a bloodbath. And then we actually just got somebody that's doing a month staycation. Their travel plans got canceled, so they're doing a staycation in the Airbnb. I'm like, that's awesome. But at any rate, so we're getting ready to launch another. I got my 5-year-old in there working with me in the Airbnb and explaining to them what we're doing. My 8-year-old is working there. My 8-year-old's doing some administrative stuff for me, at home. Get them involved. The life lessons that you have the opportunity to teach your kiddos right now are huge, huge. So make sure you're taking advantage of that.
I love that, right? We have to let our kiddos see us work. We have to instill the behavior that we want to instill into them. And right now it's I mean, like, this is one of the best times ever to do that, right? So let them see you work, and let them be part of it, and let them teach them those lessons throughout. So
I do want to talk about attraction for a minute.
Let's wrap that. Let's wrap it up with attraction. I think that's a great point. So yeah, kind of dive in, and I'm excited for what you're going to share, because there's some real opportunity with the attraction side of things.
Yeah. So right now, everywhere around the country, they're doing different things, right? Depending on the level of your state, some are completely shut down. Some have some ability to get out and show property and so forth and so on, but it's still limited. So like, the people out in California where everybody's on standby, pivot. If you can't be productive in actually selling, get real engaged with the agents that real engaged. Start creating those Facebook groups or those Zoom calls where you guys are openly discussing how you are approaching this and what you're doing to insulate yourself from losing cash, from what are you doing to stay in touch with your clients? How are you informing them? There's a lot of fear-based messages going on out there. Start creating spaces for the agents to come together, non-denominational, right? Come together and share that information. It is absolutely huge. Pivot. Make sure that you're talking with agents, and that, because a lot of them, I mean, some of these brokerages, mom and pop brokerages, I mean, they shut the doors. It'll be interesting to see if they even are able to come out of this.
Right.
Which is sad. It's awful. But these people are going to need a place to go. They're going to need people to lean on. They're going to need training and education, and they're not getting that necessarily from where they're at. So you need to be a resource for them, a connector. If you feel that you don't have the ability to coach and train them, oh my God, the talent we have in this group. Get them together and get them on these webinars, on these Zoom calls. Take advantage of all of that in your communication. It is key. Reach out to anybody that you have a deal with. Not only are you reaching out to your clients and saying, hey, this is how we're handling this right now, do not skip the step of not reaching out to your co-broke, because their brokerages are handling things totally different than our brokerage. Reach out to them and say, hey, this is what I've been instructed to do. This is how we're handling this. How are you handling this? Are we cool? What can I do to help you? Agents now that have a hard time with technology, oh my goodness, do you have an opportunity to help them?
Big
oh
time.
My goodness.
Yep.
Guys, there's people doing full-on streaming, church services, so forth and so on. I have clients of mine that they went to full streaming church service. She's like, Renee, it is, and they're in their 60s, right? She's like, it has been awesome to see how we're coaching and training these individuals to get on Zoom calls, right? You have an awesome opportunity to reach out to agents that typically wouldn't know how to do those things. Get them on the Zoom calls, teach them how to do it, make them part of your world now. And I'm telling you, when those folks decide that it's time to get out of the business, they're still going to have a sphere of influence. They still have people reaching out to them saying, will you sell my house? Make them comfortable with you being that agent that they refer that business to.
Right.
Because nobody's selling, these people aren't selling their businesses, guys. They're not selling their book of business. They're just getting out of the business, and then where's all their people go?
There's nothing to sell. So
no.
That's fantastic.
So attraction is huge right now, and in the balance, you don't, if you're stuck at home and you can't be productive in selling, you definitely need to pivot and get on the attraction side. You have to.
It. That's awesome. Renee, I appreciate you so much. Amazing call. Thank you, for making the time and adding value and really being a true expert mentor for everybody today. For all of you guys listening in, or listening to the recording with us, make sure that you guys share your biggest takeaway, but also make sure you guys give Renee lots of love. Thank you again, and look forward to seeing all of you guys on the next episode.
Bye. Thanks, guys.